one careless remark, one stunned silence, and suddenly, the most disciplined woman in the monarchy found herself at the center of a royal confrontation nobody expected. What began as a routine family dinner reportedly transformed into an unforgettable clash between Queen Camilla and Princess Anne, a moment that insiders claim left even King Charles visibly shaken. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Behind palace walls, some of the most significant royal dramas unfold far from cameras, official statements, and carefully managed public appearances. According to reports circulating among royal watchers and commentators, one such moment may have recently occurred during a private gathering attended by senior members of the royal family. It was supposed to be an evening of quiet conversation and family unity. Instead, whispers suggest it became the setting for a tense exchange that has reignited long-standing questions about influence, loyalty, and power within the House of Windsor. The timing could hardly have been more sensitive. With ongoing public concerns surrounding King Charles and persistent discussions about the future direction of the monarchy, every private gathering reportedly carries added significance. Senior royals are said to be navigating a period of uncertainty, balancing personal relationships with institutional responsibilities. In that environment, even a seemingly casual comment can carry extraordinary weight. According to various interpretations of the evening, the family had gathered behind closed doors for what was intended to be a private dinner among close relatives. Discussions reportedly ranged from routine family matters to broader questions concerning upcoming royal duties and responsibilities. Those familiar with royal dynamics often note that such gatherings are rarely as informal as they appear. Every interaction is observed, every word is remembered, every gesture can become meaningful. It was during one of these conversations, according to palace whispers, that Queen Camilla allegedly made a remark directed toward Princess Anne. The exact wording remains unclear, and no official account has emerged. However, reports suggest the comment was perceived by some present as dismissive, causing an immediate shift in the atmosphere. What moments earlier had reportedly been relaxed conversation suddenly became something much heavier. Observers who follow royal affairs closely claim the reaction was almost instantaneous. Several attendees allegedly attempted to redirect the discussion, steering the conversation toward safer topics. Others reportedly remained silent. It is now whispered in certain royal circles that the tension was impossible to ignore, despite efforts to smooth things over. Whether the remark was intended as criticism, humor, or something else entirely remains the subject of speculation, but insiders claim it landed far differently than intended. Perhaps the most remarkable detail involves Princess Anne herself. Known throughout her life for her discipline, composure, and refusal to engage in public drama, Anne reportedly offered little outward response. She did not reportedly argue. She did not reportedly challenge the remark. She simply listened. Yet according to those familiar with the situation, it was that very silence that drew attention. For decades, Anne has cultivated a reputation unlike any other member of the royal family. While others have found themselves at the center of headlines, controversies, and public disputes, she has remained defined by consistency and duty. Those who know the institution best often describe her as one of its strongest pillars, a royal whose commitment rarely wavers regardless of personal circumstances. Because of that reputation, even the slightest perceived slight directed toward her can resonate far beyond the moment itself. Reports suggest several family members noticed her reaction immediately. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was so restrained. In royal circles, silence can sometimes speak louder than words. A brief pause, a measured expression, a refusal to engage. These small moments often reveal more than heated arguments ever could. And according to those discussing the dinner, that silence lingered long after the conversation moved on. As rumors of the gathering slowly began circulating among royal commentators, the focus quickly shifted away from the specific remark and toward a larger question. Why did this particular incident generate such intense interest? Why did palace insiders reportedly view it as more significant than an ordinary family disagreement? The answer, many believe, lies not in what may have been said that evening, but in who it was allegedly said to. Yet, the real reason the comment caused such outrage had less to do with Anne's feelings and everything to do with her decades of sacrifice. For more than 5 decades, Princess Anne has followed one rule above all others: duty before comfort. While scandals came and went, Anne remained the monarchy's most dependable defender, and that reputation made the alleged insult far more explosive than anyone anticipated. That is why the whispers surrounding the reported family dinner refused to disappear. To many royal observers, the story was never simply about a comment, an awkward exchange, or even a moment of tension between senior members of the royal family. The deeper issue was the person at the center of it all. Because when criticism is perceived to be aimed at Princess Anne, it rarely stays personal for long. It quickly becomes institutional. For decades, Anne has occupied a unique position within the monarchy. She has never been the loudest royal, the most photographed royal, or the most publicly celebrated royal. Yet among palace staff, long-serving courtiers, and countless royal commentators, she is often described as something even more valuable, reliable. While other members of the family occasionally found themselves navigating controversy, public scrutiny, or periods of uncertainty, Anne built a reputation through relentless consistency. Year after year, engagement after engagement, she carried out her responsibilities with little fanfare and even less complaint. That reputation was not built overnight. It was earned through thousands of public appearances, countless charitable commitments, and an unwavering willingness to put duty ahead of personal convenience. Reports from royal historians frequently note that Anne has maintained one of the busiest schedules in the family, often ranking among the highest in annual engagement totals. While headlines tended to focus elsewhere, Anne quietly continued her work, creating an image of dedication that became almost impossible to challenge. Perhaps even more important was her relationship with Queen Elizabeth II. Throughout the late Queen's reign, Anne was widely viewed as one of her most trusted allies. The two women shared a reputation for discipline, resilience, and a deep belief in service. Various royal commentators have suggested that Anne inherited many of the qualities that defined Elizabeth's approach to monarchy. She understood the institution not as a platform for personal recognition, but as a lifelong responsibility. That belief shaped nearly every aspect of her public life. When royal traditions faced criticism, Anne often remained one of their strongest defenders. When periods of uncertainty threatened public confidence, she responded with stability. When others stepped back, she frequently stepped forward. Over time, that pattern transformed her into something larger than a senior royal. She became a symbol of continuity. The respect that followed was not limited to palace corridors. Staff members who have worked alongside the monarchy over the years have often spoken positively about Anne's professionalism. Courtiers reportedly viewed her as someone who understood the mechanics of the institution better than almost anyone else. Members of the public, even those with differing views about the monarchy itself, frequently acknowledged her work ethic. In an era when public figures are often judged by image, Anne earned admiration through persistence. That is precisely why the alleged dinner exchange generated such intense discussion. To critics and supporters alike, Anne's reputation has become intertwined with the idea of service itself. Any perceived slight against her can be interpreted as a challenge to values many believe have helped sustain the institution through decades of change. Fairly or unfairly, criticism aimed at Anne often triggers reactions that extend far beyond the individual involved. And according to royal watchers, that reaction may already be taking shape. The more people discussed the reported dinner, the more attention shifted toward a question that had quietly lingered for years. Was this truly an isolated moment, or was it merely the latest chapter in a much older story? Because as speculation continued to spread, some insiders began pointing toward a possibility far more intriguing than a single disagreement. But insiders whispered that This wasn't the first time tensions between Anne and Camilla had quietly simmered beneath the surface. Long before the alleged dinner confrontation, there were signs that two very different visions of royal leadership were moving toward an unavoidable collision. That possibility is what has kept royal observers talking. Because according to various reports and long-standing palace speculation, the tension surrounding the reported dinner did not emerge from nowhere. It was not born in a single evening, a single conversation, or even a single disagreement. Instead, some commentators believe it reflected something much deeper, a gradual clash between two fundamentally different approaches to life inside one of the world's oldest institutions. For years, Princess Anne has been associated with continuity. Her reputation was built on structure, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to tradition. She came of age during an era when royal duty was viewed as non-negotiable, when public service came before personal preference, and when the institution itself was expected to outweigh individual ambitions. That philosophy became the foundation of her public identity, shaping not only how she carried out her responsibilities, but also how she viewed the future of the monarchy. Queen Camilla's journey, however, has been very different. Unlike Anne, her role within the royal family emerged through a far more complicated and scrutinized path. Over time, Camilla became an influential figure in King Charles's life, gradually establishing herself as a trusted confidant and partner. Supporters often point to her ability to provide stability during difficult periods, while critics have sometimes questioned how her influence has evolved within royal circles. Fairly or unfairly, this distinction has fueled endless speculation about where authority truly resides behind palace walls. Those differing paths reportedly created contrasting perspectives on leadership. Anne has frequently been associated with the institutional mindset, the belief that the monarchy survives through consistency, restraint, and adherence to long-established principles. Camilla, meanwhile, is often portrayed by commentators as operating through relationships, personal influence, and informal networks. Neither approach is necessarily incompatible on its own. The challenge arises when both are attempting to shape the same institution during a period of historic uncertainty. According to royal insiders and biographers, there have been occasional hints of friction over the years. Not dramatic public disputes, not headline-grabbing confrontations. Rather, subtle differences in outlook that reportedly surfaced during discussions involving royal priorities, family matters, and public responsibilities. Most of these accounts remain impossible to verify fully, but the persistence of the rumors has kept them alive within royal commentary circles. At the center of many of these reports stands King Charles himself. Anne and Charles share a lifelong bond forged through childhood duty and decades of navigating royal life together. Their relationship has often been described as one built on mutual understanding. Camilla, on the other hand, occupies an entirely different position. She is not simply a family member. She is the king's closest companion and one of the most influential figures in his personal world. As a result, any disagreement involving Anne and Camilla inevitably carries an additional layer of complexity, because it places Charles between two people who matter enormously to him for very different reasons. Over time, palace observers began describing what they perceived as a broader divide within royal circles. On one side stood figures associated with the monarchy's traditional framework, the so-called Old Guard, committed to preserving customs that have defined the institution for generations. On the other stood newer power networks shaped by evolving realities, changing expectations, and modern challenges. While the monarchy publicly presents a united front, insiders have long suggested that these competing philosophies occasionally create friction beneath the surface. That is why the alleged dinner incident resonated so strongly. To many commentators, it appeared less like an isolated disagreement and more like the latest manifestation of a struggle that had been quietly unfolding for years. Every whispered disagreement, every reported difference of opinion, every subtle sign of tension suddenly seemed to take on new significance. And as speculation continued to grow, attention inevitably returned to that private gathering. Because if years of unspoken differences had truly been building beneath the surface, then what happened during that family dinner may have been far more consequential than anyone initially realized. Then came the dinner itself, and according to various interpretations, the conversation took a devastating turn. Witnesses may never publicly reveal exactly what was said, but palace whispers suggest the words landed with the force of a royal earthquake. By the time discussion returned to the reported family dinner, the focus had shifted from years of speculation to a single moment. One exchange, one comment, one reaction that, according to various interpretations, changed the atmosphere almost instantly. What had allegedly begun as a routine conversation among senior royals suddenly became the subject of intense fascination, because those familiar with the story believe something happened that crossed an invisible line. The challenge, of course, is that no official account exists. No transcript has emerged. No participant has publicly confirmed what was said. Yet that absence of certainty has only fueled greater intrigue. Royal commentators, insiders, and longtime observers have spent weeks attempting to piece together fragments of information, constructing what they believe may have occurred behind closed doors. And while details vary from one account to another, a common theme appears again and again. Reports suggest that the conversation had turned toward royal responsibilities, future priorities, and the growing pressures facing the institution. With King Charles reportedly navigating an especially demanding period, discussions surrounding workload, leadership, and family obligations were said to carry unusual significance. It was within that context, according to palace whispers, that a remark allegedly directed toward Princess Anne entered the conversation. The exact wording remains unknown. What insiders claim, however, is that the comment was perceived by some attendees as dismissive of Anne's role and contributions. Whether it was intended as criticism, frustration, humor, or simple observation remains impossible to determine. Yet multiple versions of the story suggest the same conclusion. Several people present reportedly felt the remark landed badly. That reaction is what transformed an ordinary disagreement into something much larger. According to various interpretations, the room did not immediately erupt into argument. There were no dramatic confrontations, no public scenes. Instead, what followed was something many observers believe was even more revealing: silence. Those who discuss the incident describe a brief but unmistakable shift in mood. Conversations reportedly stalled. Momentum disappeared. Family members who had been actively participating suddenly became cautious. Some accounts suggest attempts were made to redirect the discussion elsewhere. Others claim several attendees simply chose not to engage at all. Regardless of which version is closest to reality, nearly every retelling includes one detail. The tension became impossible to ignore. Particularly striking were reports concerning King Charles. According to palace speculation, the king may have been caught off guard by the direction the conversation had taken. If true, it would place him in an extraordinarily difficult position. On one side stood his wife, on the other stood his sister, one of the most loyal figures in the institution and someone who has spent decades supporting both him and the crown. For a monarch already carrying immense responsibilities, the possibility of conflict between two of the most important people in his life would have been deeply uncomfortable. But what truly captured public imagination was not merely the alleged comment itself. It was why so many people reportedly viewed it as crossing a line. Critics of the remark argue that Anne's standing within the monarchy has been earned through a lifetime of service. To them, any perceived attempt to diminish that contribution touches a sensitive nerve. Supporters believe the issue was never about pride or personal offense. It was about respect for decades of sacrifice. As speculation intensified, attention increasingly shifted toward Anne's response. Surely, some wondered, a figure known for her directness and independence would push back. Surely there would be some visible sign of anger, frustration, or disagreement. Yet according to nearly every version of the story, that is not what happened at all. What happened next surprised everyone because Princess Anne didn't raise her voice, storm out, or demand an apology. Princess Anne has never been known for dramatic confrontations. Her strength has always been something far more effective: patience, discipline, and precision. That was precisely why the reports surrounding her reaction generated so much fascination. In an age where public disagreements often unfold in full view of the world, Anne has spent her entire life operating by a different set of rules. She rarely explains herself, she rarely seeks sympathy, and perhaps most importantly, she rarely reacts in ways that satisfy public expectations. If observers were waiting for outrage, they were reportedly disappointed. If they expected a direct challenge or a heated exchange, they found none. According to the various accounts circulating among royal commentators, Anne's response was something far more unsettling: absolute composure. As speculation surrounding the alleged dinner continued to spread, a curious pattern began to emerge. The story was no longer focused solely on what may have been said. Instead, attention increasingly shifted toward what happened afterward. Because while there were no reports of public criticism, no leaked statements, and no visible signs of retaliation, insiders claimed that conversations quietly began taking place elsewhere. Those familiar with palace operations often point out that influence within the monarchy rarely announces itself. The most significant responses frequently happen behind closed doors, away from headlines and public scrutiny. According to royal observers, this may have been one of those moments. Anne reportedly continued with her duties exactly as she always had. Engagements were attended, responsibilities were fulfilled. Public appearances remained unchanged. On the surface, nothing appeared different. Yet beneath that calm exterior, reports suggest senior figures within royal circles were paying close attention. Long-serving aides, administrative officials, and trusted advisors allegedly began discussing the broader implications of the reported incident, not because of the comment itself, but because of what it symbolized. For many within the institution, Anne's standing had been built over decades of service. Any perceived challenge to that standing was viewed through a much wider lens. It is within these discussions that palace watchers claim a new phrase quietly began circulating. Some insiders reportedly referred to an emerging response as an iron protocol. Whether such a coordinated effort truly exists remains impossible to verify. Nevertheless, the phrase has captured attention because it perfectly reflects Anne's reputation. Not an emotional reaction, not a personal feud, but a measured, institutional response grounded in discipline and loyalty to the monarchy itself. According to those who subscribe to this theory, the so-called Iron Protocol was never about punishment or revenge. Instead, it represented something far more powerful: silent solidarity. Supporters reportedly began closing ranks around Anne. Individuals who respected her years of dedication allegedly viewed the controversy as a reminder of her importance to the institution. In many ways, the reported backlash was less about defending a person and more about defending what that person represented. As these conversations gained momentum, some commentators suggested growing unease among those perceived to be aligned with Camilla's circle. Again, there is little concrete evidence to support such claims. Yet rumors persisted. Palace speculation thrives in uncertainty, and uncertainty was exactly what surrounded the aftermath of the alleged dinner. Every interaction was analyzed. Every appearance was scrutinized. Every silence seemed to invite new interpretations. The contrast could not have been more striking. While rumors swirled around her, Anne reportedly refused to engage. While others debated motives and consequences, she continued her responsibilities without public acknowledgement of the controversy. That refusal to participate only strengthened her position in the eyes of supporters. To them, it reinforced the very qualities that had earned her respect for decades: restraint, resilience, and an unwavering focus on duty. But the longer the speculation continued, the more difficult it became to avoid a larger question. Because if support truly was building around Anne, and if concerns were quietly spreading throughout royal circles, there was one person whose response mattered more than anyone else's. One figure positioned directly between loyalty, family, and the future stability of the monarchy. As support rallied around Anne, Attention quickly shifted to the king and whether he would intervene. Few people faced a more uncomfortable position than King Charles. The dispute placed him directly between the woman he married and the sister, who had stood beside him for a lifetime. As the speculation surrounding the alleged dinner continued to spread, attention increasingly focused on a single question. What did the king think about all of this? Behind every royal controversy lies a complicated network of personal relationships, institutional responsibilities, and private loyalties. But in this situation, those competing pressures appeared to converge on one individual. If reports and palace whispers are to be believed, Charles found himself navigating one of the most delicate balancing acts of his reign. His connection to Princess Anne stretches back far beyond titles, ceremonies, or public duties. They grew up together under extraordinary circumstances, sharing experiences few people could ever truly understand. Through decades of change, personal challenges, public scrutiny, and historic transitions within the monarchy, Anne remained a constant presence. Royal commentators have often described their relationship as one built on trust, mutual respect, and a shared understanding of what duty demands. When difficult moments emerged, Anne was frequently viewed as one of the most dependable figures in Charles's orbit. Yet Camilla occupies an entirely different place in the king's life. She is not simply another member of the family. She is his closest companion, the person who has stood beside him through some of the most turbulent chapters of his personal journey. Over time, her influence within the royal household has become increasingly significant. Supporters often argue that she provides stability and support during periods of immense pressure. Critics, meanwhile, have occasionally questioned how that influence shapes decisions behind palace walls. Regardless of perspective, few dispute her importance to the king. That is what made the alleged conflict so complicated. This was not merely a disagreement between two senior royals. According to various interpretations, it placed Charles between two people whose roles in his life could not easily be separated from either his personal happiness or his responsibilities. As monarch, every possible response carried consequences. Every decision risked disappointing someone he valued deeply. Reports suggest concerns began circulating among senior royal figures as discussions about the incident intensified. The monarchy has always depended on unity, particularly during periods of uncertainty. With ongoing public attention focused on the institution's future, many observers believed the last thing the royal family needed was speculation about internal divisions. Even rumors of discord have the potential to create headlines, and headlines can quickly evolve into narratives that become difficult to control. According to palace commentators, this broader concern may have influenced the king's reported approach. Rather than escalating tensions, reports suggest Charles sought to calm the situation and prevent further friction. Whether those efforts involved private conversations, quiet reassurances, or simple appeals for unity remains unknown. As with so much of royal life, the details remain hidden behind layers of discretion and protocol. Yet the possibility that the king attempted to ease tensions fits a pattern observers have frequently associated with him throughout his public life. The stakes extended far beyond personal relationships. Every royal disagreement carries two dimensions. There is the family dimension, shaped by emotion, loyalty, and history. Then there is the institutional dimension, where public perception, stability, and continuity become equally important. In this case, the two appeared inseparable. What may have begun as an uncomfortable exchange reportedly evolved into a situation with implications reaching far beyond a single dinner table. And as commentators continued debating what happened, some began expressing concerns about something larger than hurt feelings or strained relationships. Because if rumors of division continued to grow, the monarchy itself could face unwanted questions during an already sensitive period. What began as private speculation was now raising broader concerns throughout royal circles. But beyond the family drama, courtiers feared something even more dangerous: the damage to royal stability. What began as a private disagreement was rapidly becoming a palace-wide problem. And according to insiders, sympathy overwhelmingly flowed in one direction. That shift may have been the most unexpected consequence of the entire controversy. For days, attention had centered on the alleged exchange itself. Who said what? What was meant? How should it be interpreted? But as speculation continued to spread through royal commentary circles, those questions gradually gave way to another. How were people inside the institution reacting? Because according to palace whispers, the answer was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Reports suggest that many long-serving courtiers viewed the situation through the lens of history, rather than the details of a single conversation. To them, Princess Anne was not merely another senior royal. She represented decades of continuity, discipline, and service. Whether one agreed with every aspect of her approach or not, few disputed the extent of her contribution. As a result, insiders claim that sympathy naturally gravitated toward the figure whose reputation had been built over a lifetime of visible commitment to the crown. Within royal households, loyalty often develops over years rather than weeks. Staff members witness moments the public never sees. They observe routines, responsibilities, sacrifices, and pressures that rarely make headlines. According to various reports, many individuals who had worked within royal circles over extended periods reportedly held Anne in particularly high regard. That respect, built slowly over decades, may have influenced how some interpreted the alleged controversy. At the same time, palace speculation suggests growing criticism directed toward Camilla's perceived role in the situation. It is important to note that much of this remains rumor rather than verified fact. Nevertheless, royal commentators began discussing whether the reported incident reflected broader concerns that had surfaced periodically throughout the years. Critics questioned judgment. Supporters defended her intentions. The result was an increasingly polarized conversation that extended well beyond the original allegation. As often happens with royal stories, internal speculation did not remain confined to palace corridors for long. Media commentators, royal analysts, and social observers began dissecting every available detail. Each new theory generated another wave of discussion. Every anonymous source produced fresh headlines. The lack of concrete information only seemed to intensify public fascination. In many ways, uncertainty became fuel for the story itself. Soon, comparisons to previous royal disputes began emerging. Some observers drew parallels to earlier periods of tension within the monarchy, arguing that history had repeatedly shown how seemingly minor disagreements could evolve into larger institutional challenges. Others dismissed such comparisons as exaggerated, insisting that private family disagreements occur in every family, royal or otherwise. Yet the fact that such comparisons were being made at all demonstrated how much attention the controversy had already attracted. Underlying all these discussions was a concern that extended beyond personalities. The monarchy relies heavily on public confidence. Stability, continuity, and unity are not merely symbolic ideals. They are essential components of the institution's public image. When rumors of internal friction gain momentum, even if many details remain unverified, they create opportunities for wider questions about leadership and cohesion. That concern reportedly weighed heavily on some royal observers. The issue was no longer simply whether a comment had been misunderstood or whether feelings had been hurt. Instead, the conversation was increasingly focused on perception. What would the public think? How would supporters of the monarchy interpret the reports? Could a private disagreement unintentionally reinforce narratives of division at a time when the institution was already facing heightened scrutiny? The longer the story remained alive, the more those questions seemed to grow, and with every new discussion, another issue slowly moved into focus. Because beneath the debate over comments, reactions, and loyalties lay a far more significant question, one that could shape the monarchy's future, long after the immediate controversy faded from memory. As the controversy continued to grow, a larger question emerged about the future balance of power inside the House of Windsor. Royal disputes come and go, but every so often, a single moment exposes deeper truths about loyalty, sacrifice, and who ultimately carries the weight of the crown. That is perhaps why the alleged confrontation continues to attract attention. Long after the reported dinner itself faded from public view, because beneath the rumors, speculation, and competing interpretations lies a story that many believe speaks to something much larger than a disagreement between two senior members of the royal family. Whether every detail is accurate or not, the reaction surrounding the incident has revealed how differently people view the figures at the center of it. More importantly, it has highlighted the values that many believe still define the monarchy during one of the most uncertain periods in its modern history. Throughout every chapter of this story, one theme has consistently resurfaced: duty. For decades, Princess Anne has built her reputation around it. She has never relied on popularity contests, dramatic interviews, or carefully managed public campaigns to define her role. Instead, she earned respect through persistence, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to service. That is why so many observers interpreted the reported backlash as something deeper than personal loyalty. In their eyes, it reflected admiration for a royal who has spent a lifetime putting responsibility before recognition. In many ways, Anne's role has become symbolic. She represents continuity in an institution built on continuity. She represents stability during periods of uncertainty. And perhaps most importantly, she represents the belief that service matters more than status. Whether one supports the monarchy or questions its relevance, even many critics acknowledge the consistency with which she has approached her responsibilities. That consistency has become her greatest strength. For Queen Camilla, however, the challenge remains different. Fairly or unfairly, public perception has followed her throughout much of her royal journey. Supporters point to her years of dedication beside King Charles, and her efforts to adapt to a role that carried enormous scrutiny from the very beginning. Critics continue to examine her influence and place within the institution. As a result, stories like this one often become part of a larger debate that extends well beyond any single event. The alleged dinner controversy may eventually fade, but the broader conversation surrounding her public image is likely to continue. Meanwhile, King Charles remains caught between competing responsibilities that few people could fully understand. He is not only a monarch tasked with safeguarding an institution, he is also a husband, a brother, and the central figure connecting many of the personalities involved in these stories. Throughout the controversy, reports suggested his primary concern was preserving unity. Whether those reports are accurate or not, they reflect a reality that has followed Charles throughout much of his public life. Leadership within the monarchy often requires balancing personal relationships against institutional obligations, and those two priorities do not always align easily. Perhaps that is the ultimate lesson hidden within this entire episode. Royal families may experience disagreements, tensions, and misunderstandings just like any other family. But when those moments occur inside an institution whose survival depends on public confidence, they inevitably take on greater significance. Every controversy becomes a test. Every disagreement becomes a reflection of deeper questions about leadership, loyalty, and purpose. And after all the speculation, all the palace whispers, and all the competing narratives, one idea continues to stand above the rest. Personalities matter, influence matters, public perception matters. But institutions endure only when individuals place something larger than themselves first. That belief has guided generations of royals through crises far greater than any reported dinner dispute, and many observers believe it remains just as relevant today. And in the end, while remarks fade and controversies pass, the monarchy's oldest lesson remains unchanged. Influence may command attention, but duty is what endures. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.